Hello, hello. Sweet, just trying to get set up real fast. Cool. So that looks pretty good. Maybe we can do this. There we go. Cool. Oh, there's VP. Awesome. Hello, hello, friends. I know that it's a little bit before, 6 o'clock for today's flow. Oh, here, I think we're a little off center. That looks pretty good, I think. Cool. Okay, so we might be a little wonky, and I apologize for that. It's mostly just how my phone is balanced on a tripod. But hopefully today we should be pretty good. Or actually, here, I'm gonna try and fix that, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Beautiful. Okay. Hello, hello friends. Happy Saturday. My name is Cassie and I'll be guiding today's practice. For today, we're going to be moving pretty gently today, not super moments of high intensity or anything like that. Just really trying to focus on the shoulders and the hips, especially today. And then just kind of working out that kind of like general rounded sitting feeling and just trying to like open up the front body and kind of let energy move a little bit. It's a little bit warm in my house, so I'm going to take off my sweatshirt real fast. Sorry. Beautiful. Okay. Sweet. Hello, hello, friends. If you're just tuning in, awesome. You haven't missed anything, don't worry. For today's practice, if you have any blocks or boxes or books or really anything that you feel very sturdy holding onto, they're just there to make our arms a little bit longer and help reach the ground a little bit easier. And for today's practice, they'll be pretty helpful. Or if you don't have anything like that, grabbing either a sofa or a couch like the one behind me, or even a chair or a step stool or something like that will be super helpful. Something that I always love for practice are a couple blankets. So if you have any blankets or towels, something like that, that's always super helpful just to make the ground a little bit more cushy and comfortable, but also as a tool that we might want to use. Personally, I really love it, especially for Shavasana, our final pose, just to be a little bit more like warm and safe and kind of comfort. So yeah. Oh, and if you have really tight quads, so really tight fronts of the legs here, having like a strap, kind of like so, or like a tie, a leash, a belt, a scarf, like a really long piece of rope or something like that, again, just to make your arms a little bit longer, could be useful. Not necessary for today's class, and if you're like, ooh, I feel like I have tight quads, but I don't have something, that is okay too. The strap is not necessary. But having something to hold on to, even if it's the wall, just to kind of prop up against to help us balance a little bit, will be super helpful. Sweet. So it looks like it is 6 o'clock, and hello. Welcome, welcome. My name is Cassie, and I'll be guiding today's practice. This is Sweet Pea. She'll probably run away in a little bit after I don't show her that much attention as we start moving and practicing together. And if you're just tuning in, hello, hello, welcome. Something that is super useful to have are either yoga blocks, if you have any, or if you have books, boxes, like a little step stool, something like that, just to make our arms longer. And if you don't have something like that, maybe like a chair or a sofa or even a wall next to you can definitely help when we're balancing a little bit. And the last thing, something that is also really helpful to have for today's class is a blanket or a towel. Maybe a glass of water or a water bottle, something like that is always really nice too. And then this is optional, definitely helpful, especially if you have tight fronts of the legs, so tight quads here, is something like a strap. And that can be like a scarf or a tie, a belt, a leash, or a rope, something like that. And today's class will pretty much focus on the neck and shoulders area here, and then into the front part of the hips especially too. I've been pretty much sitting or standing a lot during this whole kind of stay at home, and so I'm assuming that you all probably are too, and so trying to move some of that around will definitely be super helpful. So yeah, awesome. Today, we're going to start off in child's pose, and if there's a different shape that is calling your name, that is totally great. Please feel free to do that as well. But if child's pose feels good in your body, we'll start off kind of like in a little modified tabletop here, just really quick as a transition. Open our knees out to the long edges of our mat, and then start to sink our hips towards our heels with the tops of our feet flat on the ground. If this feels pretty comfortable, maybe we start to reach our arms out long in front of us, resting our forehead on the earth. And if this is uncomfortable for you, or maybe your hips are starting to feel a little bit tight or a little bit wonky, if you take maybe like one of your blankets or towels that you might have and roll it and place it behind your knees, that usually feels pretty nice. It helps increase that angle in between our knees, or in between our hips and heels. Or if you have a book or a block or a super fluffy pillow or something like that to place in between your tailbone and heels, that's also feels really nice. And then we can start to kind of stretch forward like so. Whichever feels good. And if there's a different shape, like I said, that's calling your name, that is totally great as well. Please feel free to honor your body. Start to take in 3 deep, deep breaths, each one releasing through the mouth. Deeper breath in, super big exhale. Deepest breath all day. Really let it go, add some emotion. Start to breathe in and out through your nose. Inhaling nice and deep into your low belly so that you feel your belly expand against your thighs. Imagining that you could breathe into kind of this balloon in your belly, and you're trying to fill it all the way up, trying to press your air into all sides of this vessel, into this balloon. And with each exhale, completely letting go, letting all of that air steadily flow out through your nose, almost like you're trying to bring your belly button towards your spine. Inhale, fill up. Exhale, release. Maybe close down your eyes if they're not already closed. Or maybe gaze at something softly in front of you. And start to notice the little sounds and kind of quirks maybe around your environment. Noticing if you can hear like your refrigerator running, or the sound of the wash, or kids playing upstairs. Or maybe there's complete silence. And almost start to get curious about it, in a sense where it's kind of happening and you're not necessarily super focused on that sound or the absence of sound, but letting it kind of wash over you, kind of like the wind or like a gentle breeze. And start to notice your more sensory sensations with your fingertips and your body, and feeling more about touch. Maybe you feel your clothes gently hugging your skin, noticing the temperature of your breath on your upper lip. Noticing if your toes are still present and kind of happy in the sense of they're not losing any blood. And start to shift your awareness a little bit more inwards, really noticing how that breath moves in your body. Almost as if with each breath that you take in, you start to expand a little bit. With each exhale, you arrive just a little bit more on your mat. Take in one deep breath, really filling your rib cage and your low belly. And as you exhale, maybe start to rock your head from side to side if it reaches the floor. And if it doesn't, maybe bring like a block or a blanket or a pillow underneath your forehead to massage that space in between your eyebrows. On your next exhale, start to walk your fingertips towards the top right corner of your mat. And if you're not practicing on a mat, it might feel nice to just kind of widen your hands a little bit further past your right knee so that you're really arcing over towards the right. And to deepen the sensation, maybe place your left hand on top of your right and then really ground down through your left sitting bone as you push down and forwards with your hands. And if you wear glasses, it might be nice to take them off. Really breathing and allowing your left side body to expand. Take in one deep breath. And as you exhale, start to walk your fingertips over towards the top left corner, staying super low, moving as slow as you would like. Maybe placing your right hand on top of your left, arcing a little bit more towards the left side this time as you still ground down through your right sitting bone and reach forwards and down and forwards more with your palms. Think about gently rotating your elbow creases upwards and take in one more deep breath. As you exhale, start to come back towards center. Again, staying super low. And then tent onto your fingertips so that it's almost like you're trying to protect a cupcake underneath both palms and that you're only touching your finger pads. Think about kind of reaching forwards with your shoulders and then maybe gently alternating which shoulder dips a little bit closer towards the earth. Almost like you're kind of swaying side to side, just kind of noticing the little tissue movements in your shoulders, noticing how this starts to feel. Take in one more deep breath. And as you exhale, start to walk your fingertips underneath your shoulders. Again, moving as slow as you would like. And then start to rock your hips forward, coming into a tabletop position. My hands are stacked underneath my shoulders and my knees are stacked underneath my hips. And then claw the ground or the earth with your fingertips. So it's kind of like you're trying to make a fist, but the ground won't let you. And then press down and forwards through your base knuckles where your fingers meet the palms of your hands. So it's kind of like you're really digging into dirt or into sand, kind of like you're playing around in it. And then bend your elbows out to the side and wrap them underneath so that the eye of your elbow, the place where it bends, points forward. And we have this sensation that we're hugging our elbows towards each other. On your next inhale, start to drop your belly, squeeze your shoulders onto your back, gaze up towards the sky. Exhale, start to really round through your back, pushing the ground away, gaze towards your belly button. Inhale, drop your belly, swim your heart through your chest. Exhale, round your back, really lift that space in between your shoulder blades up. Let your head hang heavy. Inhale, drop your belly, squeeze your shoulder blades together. Exhale, round through your back. Continue this movement for maybe 5 to 10 more rounds of breath, adding any organic movement into this shape. So still following your breath, maybe we'd start to dip the hips from side to side to work a little bit more in there. Maybe child's pose felt really good and that's calling your name. Or maybe one of those more exaggerated shapes, whether we're rounding or arching, felt really nice. Whatever feels good in your body. Maybe imagine that you're kind of scraping out the inside of a barrel or the inside of a peanut butter jar, trying to get the last little bit. Or maybe working into the wrists a little bit. Really, whatever is calling your name is totally great. Or grabbing some water. Taking one more deep breath wherever you are, and we'll meet in a tabletop position. So that same stacked hands underneath shoulders shape, but this time with a flat back. Once you're there, really ground down again, finding our foundation, and then ground down through your left hand a little bit more, maybe even shifting your weight a little bit more towards the left, and maybe even turn your middle finger so that it points up towards the top left corner of your mat. On your next inhale, reach your right arm up to the sky, really growing tall, giving space in between both fingertips. Exhale, thread your right hand through your left hand and left knee, dropping the back of your right shoulder down to the ground, resting your right ear on the ground. If that doesn't feel good, we can place a blanket or a towel underneath your shoulder or underneath your head, or even both. Find a shape that feels good for you, and maybe we stay here, or maybe it might feel nice to walk your left hand forwards. This changes the sensation in the left shoulder, so maybe play around with that. Or maybe bind your left hand behind your back, bringing the back of your left hand to your right outer hip, and then really rolling your shoulder onto your back. This works more into the chest. So whichever feels better in your body, you can pick that shape, or stay where we started originally. There's no right or wrong. We're really just trying to tune in and see what we need. If you're looking for a little balance challenge, maybe slide your left toes out long back behind you. And again, this is just all for fun, all optional. If you're not really looking to play around with balance, that's totally fine. You can stay right here. If you do want to play around with balance and you slid out your toes, super activate your core, and then maybe hover your left leg behind you. Maybe an inch or two off the ground, or even up to hip height. And if you roll onto your back, it's just all for fun. Taking one more deep breath. And as you exhale, if you had lifted your left knee, release it next to your right. Start to walk your left hand underneath your left shoulder. And on your next inhale, reach your right arm up towards the sky, growing tall. Maybe add a couple of wrist circles going one way and then the other. And then release your right hand down to the ground. Any counter movements, maybe that arching and rounding that we started off with, or maybe, just kind of shaking it out a little bit. Once you're ready, we'll turn our right hand so that our right middle finger points up towards the top right corner of our mat, and start to shift our weight a little bit more into the right hand. On your next inhale, reach your left arm up towards the sky, growing nice and tall. Exhale, thread your left hand through your right hand, and right hand and right knee, dropping the back of your left shoulder down to the ground. Again, we can use maybe a blanket, towel, pillow, block, book, anything like that to place underneath to help make this shape a little bit more sustainable. And again, just like before, maybe play around with reaching your right arm forwards, or maybe play around with binding your right hand behind your back. So bringing the back of your right hand to your left outer hip, and then rolling your shoulder onto your back. Again, whichever shape feels better for you is totally great. Really breathe deep into your belly. If you liked that balance challenge, maybe slide your right toes out long back behind you. Turn on your core and maybe hover your toes up off the ground, or maybe reach your heel up to about hip height. Again, this is just all for fun, and you don't have to look like me, or maybe you played around with it on the other side and you don't want to play around with it on this side. That's totally fine too. Take in one more deep breath. As you exhale, if you had lifted your right knee, release it next to your left, and then walk your right hand underneath your right shoulder. This will be a little bit different, and no matter what, stay here in this shape and then slide your left leg out long back behind you, rolling onto your left outer hip, almost like you're kind of in bed, and it's nice and cushy. We'll keep that momentum going, reaching our right arm open to the right, coming into a supine twist on our back. And what I want is for both of my shoulders to be grounded, even if my knee lifts a little bit. And if we want, we can be a little bit more supported here, maybe place a block or a book or a box or a pillow, something like that, underneath our knee to be a little bit more supported. And our arms can be outstretched like a T, or more for chest expansion, maybe cactus your arms, so make a 90-degree bend in your elbows. Take in one more deep breath here. And as you exhale, start to bring your right foot down towards the ground, bringing your hips back towards center, maybe bringing both soles of the feet down to the earth. It might feel nice to kind of windshield wiper or knock your knees from the left side to the right side, or maybe knock both knees in towards touch after widening your heels on your feet. When you're ready, bring the soles of your feet back underneath your knees, scoot your hips a little bit to the left, and then knock your knees over to the right. Maybe extending your right leg out long first and then bringing your left knee over. That's totally fine. But again, just keeping the left shoulder grounded. Again, maybe placing a block, a book, a pillow, anything like that underneath the knee, maybe to help support it a little bit, might feel really nice. Take in one more deep breath. And as you exhale, start to bring your left knee back towards center. Scoot your hips back to center. And then again, if you liked that kind of windshield wipering, so maybe knocking the knees from side to side, kind of massage the low back and the sacrum a little bit, or maybe just knocking your knees in towards center, or really any shape or counter movement that's calling your name, totally great. And when you're ready, I'm going to sit up for this, but keep laying down on your back. We will bring our knees towards our armpits so that we're framing our rib cage with our thighs. And then we can either maybe hug behind the knees and lift the soles of the feet up towards the sky, or maybe hug the sides of the shins, the sides of the ankles, or even the bottoms of the feet coming towards a happy baby shape. Whatever you're holding on to, gently hug down towards the earth as you lift the soles of your feet up towards the sky. And maybe it might feel nice to kind of rock from side to side, massaging our low back a little bit. Or it might feel nice to kind of bend and straighten one knee at a time, or maybe both knees at the same time. And whatever you're holding on to, think about trying to lengthen your tailbone towards the earth as you gently roll your shoulders down towards the ground. And something that I like to do when I play around is I'll bring the soles of my feet to touch and kind of pull my feet away from my shoulders, as this feels really good in the front of my shoulders and in my inner thighs here. But again, that's just something that I do. You don't have to do it. I think it feels good. Once you're done playing around here in Happy Baby, we'll hug our knees in towards our chest, making a super small ball shape. And then maybe if it feels comfortable to you, start to gain momentum and start to rock up and down your mat, eventually coming up towards a seated position. And if this doesn't feel good for you, that's okay. You don't have to do it. You can roll onto one side and then slowly sit up. So that's totally fine. However you would like to meet in a seated shape is great. And if you like sitting crisscross applesauce, beautiful. I personally like to sit on the edge of a blanket just to lift up my hips a little bit. And if you have a pillow, that might feel really comfortable too. And if you prefer to sit in a different shape, that's totally fine. Once you're there, we'll bind both arms behind our back. So we'll start off maybe with the left arm on top. It really doesn't matter which arm is on top, but we'll either reach for opposite elbows or maybe opposite forearms or even opposite wrists, and then gently squeeze our shoulder blades together onto our back. Once you feel pretty comfortable there, we'll start to drop our right ear towards our right shoulder. And think about trying to sit up nice and tall, but instead of flaring out through the ribs and kind of rocking the hips forward, see if you can gently knit your ribs back towards your hips so that we're working a little bit more into the shoulders, into the muscles versus the whole body. And maybe nod your head yes and no, starting to find those little sticky pieces in the neck and in the shoulders. And maybe it feels really good to stay here. Or maybe start to rock your chin towards your chest and do like little semicircles. At the beginning, I start to nod my head yes a little bit more, just to open up the front and the back of the neck. I think that feels really nice. And then I start to move towards the semicircles. Again, just moving how it feels good in your body. But then when you reach your left ear towards your left shoulder, switch arms so that we stay pretty balanced. So now, instead of my left arm being on top, I'll switch and have my right arm being on top. And maybe there's a huge difference in between the two sides, and if so, awesome, starting to work into that. And if not, that's totally fine too. Again, gently squeeze your shoulder blades together, not super like a death grip or anything like that, but just a little bit to really deepen the sensation if that's what you're looking for. And then gently again, start to activate the core a little bit so that we're not rocking forward here and becoming super arched, but that we're still staying pretty much centered on top of our hips, if that makes sense. Again, nod your head yes and no. Trying to find those little sticky places. And if it feels good to stay in one spot, that's totally great. Feels so good. And then maybe, if it's calling your name, start to rock from ear to ear, going across the chest, dipping your chin low. And then maybe, it might feel nice to rock from shoulder to shoulder, going across the back, so here. But see if you can keep your teeth touching. That way we're really opening up the front of the throat and really opening up the throat and the chest versus the crunchiness. And there still might be some crunchiness, and that's okay. Start to take in 3 deep, deep breaths. On your third exhale, we'll meet with our ears on top of our shoulders, gently releasing our arms. And maybe bring your hands to your lap and kind of add a little shoulder shimmy. Just again, noticing how that feels. Maybe we feel a lot more open in the neck and the shoulders. Or maybe we're starting to notice like, hey, there's a lot more stickiness up there and I really want to work into that later. And that's totally great. Once you're ready, maybe that neck stretch is calling your name. Feel free to stay there. But if you would like to add a little bit more movement into this next shape, we'll start to rock back into a tabletop shape. So coming again to hands underneath the shoulders and knees underneath the hips. And we're going to move towards a puppy pose, which might be really common in a lot of yoga classes, and it is in the classes that I take especially. However, it's going to be a little bit different. Starting on tabletop, we'll walk our hands forward maybe about a footprint and then raise onto our fingertips again. And still, just like in tabletop, we're hugging our elbows towards each other. We're gently kind of pressing down and away, this time through our fingertips versus the whole palm. But here it starts to help kind of strengthen the wrists as well. And just gently, and if you prefer with your hands down on the ground, that's totally fine too. But just try and think of slowly and mindfully moving your hands forward, keeping your hips stacked on top of your knees, and not necessarily blasting out through the shoulders or the elbows, but staying pretty tight and keeping that same hugging sensation as we slowly start to walk our fingertips forwards. And then over time, it kind of feels like you're trying to reach your shoulders by your ears as you gently keep walking forward. And then again, you might be a lot more raised up here. Think about trying to keep your core nice and active, just like before, of trying to knit your ribs towards your hips, so that instead of arching here while we're reaching forwards. We're trying to bring that back in almost like that rounded shape that we made at the beginning of class. Taking one more deep breath wherever you are. And as you exhale, start to slowly walk your hands, this time releasing your palms if you had lifted them down to the earth underneath your shoulders. Once you're ready, we'll curl all 10 toes under and then lift our hips up and back to downward facing dog. Maybe it feels really good to pedal out the heel, so bending and straightening one knee at a time. Or maybe pivoting on the toes and rainbowing our hips from side to side to work a little bit more into the side body. Wherever you are, think again about keeping our foundation with our fingertips and elbows, letting your head hang heavy here in this downward dog. Really allowing yourself the space to create and explore. On your next inhale, lift your heels up super high, bring your big toes to touch. Glance between your hands, and then on your exhale, slowly start to walk your feet up towards your hands, but alternating your feet. So kind of like a little salsa step, reaching your left foot over towards the right edge of your mat, reaching your right foot over towards the left side of your mat. Almost like you're making little X's with your legs, or your ankles, or your toes. Once your feet do reach your fingertips, have them just be underneath your legs, just like normal, no crossing or anything like that. And have them be at about hips distance, so about 2 fists in between our big toes if you'd like to measure. On your inhale, lift your body halfway, pressing your hands into your shins or thighs, kiss your shoulder blades together. Exhale, fold forward. Add a super deep bend into your knees so that you're resting your chest onto your thighs. Inhale, slowly rise to standing, stacking each vertebra on top until your head reaches the top. On your inhale, swipe your fingertips up towards the sky, grow nice and tall, maybe reaching pinkies, fingertips, or palms to touch. Exhale, clear your hands through heart. Inhale, swipe your fingertips up. Exhale, cactus, make a 90-degree bend in your elbows, squeeze your shoulder blades together, and then drag that sensation down your back. Inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, cactus one more time. So squeeze and drag down your back. And then this time, be really active in your hands, like you're holding onto a really big sloper if you climb, or a really big avocado or stress ball, or like trying to palm a basketball. And then face your palms towards your ears. And then notice if that does anything to that sensation in your chest. Maybe play around with trying to rotate them away from you. And then just kind of play around with this if that feels okay. Taking one more deep breath. Inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, hinge over your hips, fold forward. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long, kiss your shoulder blades together. Exhale, fold forward. Plant your hands on the ground. And then step back to plank, top of a push-up. And I promise we'll be here really momentarily. Maybe release your knees down on the earth. And on your next inhale, glance over the top of your mat. Hinge your shoulders past your wrists, maybe 2 to 3 inches. Exhale, lower all the way down to the ground. Release the tops of your toes so that it's kind of like you're swimming and you could point your toes. Press the tops of your toes into the earth so that your kneecaps pop up. Press your hips down into the earth so that your booty kind of turns on and that it's not necessarily tight like a raisin, but more of like a firm mango. Kiss your shoulder blades together. Inhale, peel your heart up, maybe pressing 10 to 20% of your weight into your hands. Exhale, release. Keep that same foundation. Press your toes and hips down. Kiss your shoulder blades together. Inhale, peel up. Exhale, release. For this third one, maybe try it with no hands. Again, totally up to you. Inhale, peel your heart up. Exhale, release. This time, sprinkle your fingertips on either side of your mat. And if you don't have a mat, just at least wider than your shoulders. And then again, tent your fingertips, protecting those cupcakes. Reach your elbows up towards the sky. Keep that same foundation of pressing your toes and your hips down into the earth. Gently squeeze your shoulder blades together. Inhale, peel your heart up. Maybe straighten your arms, they don't have to be straight. Take a peek over to the right, dip the left shoulder, and maybe a little mini push-up. Inhale, come back towards center. Peek over to the left, dip the right shoulder. This might be enough and you don't have to do that little mini push-up. The little mini push-up really increases the sensation. So again, allow your body to move and just honor your body. On your next exhale, peek over to the right, dip the left shoulder, maybe a little push-up. Inhale, come back. Exhale, peek over to the left, dip the right, little push-up. Inhale, come back. Exhale, release. Plant your hands underneath your forehead. I like to stack them and then kind of rest my forehead on the backs of my hands. And then I also like to wiggle my hips from side to side, so that might feel really nice. Once you feel ready, we'll release our hands, bringing them underneath our shoulders. Curl all 10 toes under and then gently push up to tabletop. Curl all 10 toes under and lift our hips up and back to downward facing dog. Again, maybe it feels really nice to pedal out the heels, maybe rainbow your hips from side to side. And again, tune in with your fingertips, trying to press down and forwards through the palms, and then press especially into the L's of your hands. So the pointer finger and thumb and that webbing in between. We tend to rock a lot of our weight outwards, so try and see if you can try and really focus it rocking, not necessarily inwards, but just being balanced across the palm. On your next inhale, glance between your hands. Exhale, maybe salsa step if that felt really nice, up towards the top of the mat. Maybe go nice and slow for some dramatic effect. And once you're there, again, just have your feet straight underneath you, no crossing. Inhale, lift your body halfway, pressing your hands into your shins or thighs. Exhale, fold forwards. Inhale, lift your body halfway again. Maybe really open up through the chest. Exhale, fold forward. Super deep bend in your knees. Inhale, rise to standing, maybe a little bit faster, or maybe that slow roll, up to you. Inhale, reach your fingertips up above your head, maybe touching pinkies, fingertips, or palms. Exhale, clear your hands through heart. Inhale, swipe your fingertips up, grow nice and tall. Exhale, cactus one time. Squeeze your shoulder blades together, drag that sensation down. Maybe try it with the new angle tilt in your wrists. Inhale, reach. Exhale, clear your hands through heart. Awesome. So this is where maybe a couple of blocks or maybe a chair or a sofa or the wall would be really helpful. Or even a countertop, really anything. So I'm gonna grab my blocks and I like to set them up. If you feel like you're really open in the backs of your legs, you don't have to set them up super high. If you can even use the ground if that feels comfortable for you. But I'm assuming since most of us tend to like hike and bike and go do other things, that we're probably pretty tight here. So again, maybe if you just like imagine me using my sofa, I can fold forward here, or maybe a little bit deeper here, keeping my knees not locked out, but just like a gentle bend, keeping the stretch here in the backs of the legs. Awesome. So whatever you might need to set up, great. Awesome. So I like to stand maybe just roughly like where it would be comfortable to have my hands if I'm folding forward. So we'll stand in front of that. And on your inhale, swipe your fingertips up nice and tall, grow tall. Exhale, swan dive, fold forward, hinge over your hips. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long. Exhale, fold forward. So now, bring both hands to whatever you might be holding on to, whether that is a chair, a sofa, some blocks, a countertop, really anything, or even the wall, like I mentioned earlier. But we'll bring our left hand to be centered on whatever we might be holding on. And it's roughly right underneath my nose, and I feel pretty good here. I could, if I really wanted to, again, go further down to really increase the stretch and the sensation in the backs of my legs. But that's not necessarily what I'm looking for me personally in this practice right now. Awesome. Bend your left knee just a little bit, get a little sassy. And on your next inhale, reach your right arm up towards the sky. Maybe add a couple of wrist circles, that might feel really nice. Or maybe bind your hand behind your back. So bringing the back of your right hand to your left outer hip and then rolling your shoulder onto your back. Maybe gaze up towards your hand or the ceiling. Or maybe let your head hang heavy and really let it kind of stretch out the side neck here. Taking one more deep breath. And as you exhale, release your right hand up towards the sky if you had bound it, or maybe down to the ground or towards your blocks or towards whatever you might be holding onto. Here, start to rebend both knees a little bit. Shift your weight into your right leg at first, getting a little bit light in the left heel. Then start to slide your left foot out long back behind you, super, super long, until you can reach down and rest your left knee down on the earth. So here, we'll move that. So coming here into a low lunge. If you have, maybe you're practicing on a hard surface like hardwood or tile or concrete, something like that, having some extra padding, even if you're on a carpeted surface or a squishier surface, still really nice to have. On your inhale, reach your arms up by your ears. Think about trying to squeeze and tone your outer hips towards each other, almost like you're trying to draw your right hip crease back as you push your left hip crease forward. Again, instead of pushing your ribs out here, think about gently pulling them back towards your hips. Not necessarily that you're rounded forward, but that we're a little bit more active here in our core. On your inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, cactus. Maybe try it around with that flipped grip. Inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, drop your right arm, twist towards the right into your leg. And if you're pregnant or maybe have some back issues, maybe open up that twist the opposite direction so that we're giving lots of space here into the back. Or instead of going super deep, maybe just gently decrease that angle a little bit so that we're more here. Wherever you are, with each inhale, think about lengthening through the spine, and with each exhale, using your core to initiate the twist. Gently pull your hands away from each other. Yay. Taking one more deep breath. Inhale, reach both fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, frame your front foot. And then this time, bring your right hand on the inside of your right foot. Wiggle your right foot out, maybe 2.5 to 3 footprints, or even to the outer edge of your yoga mat. Turn your right foot out about 45 degrees, and this might feel really good just to stay here. And if you have your chair or sofa or step stool or blocks or books, we can also be here to decrease the sensation. If you would like to increase it, maybe wiggle your back knee behind you just a little bit so that we're rocking a little bit more forwards here in the hips. And that might have been a lot, and that definitely works into the front of the hips and into the outer hip here with that right side booty. Maybe you want to drop your elbows down towards the earth or down towards whatever you might be holding onto. But instead of, again, rounding forward, think about trying to swim your heart through. And if you want to roll onto the pinky edge of your right foot, that's totally fine. Give yourself a little bit more space to work with. If you like movement, it might feel really good to bring your right hand to the inside of your right knee and kind of rock from side to side. Or to really increase the sensation that you feel. And you can do this with your hands or your elbows down. It doesn't really matter which shape you're in, but you can curl the left toes under, lifting up that back knee. Here, I'll try and move the block so you can see a little bit better. And then shift forwards and backwards, so from short end to short end of your mat. And that really increases the sensation. Again, trying to swim your heart forward, gently hugging your shoulders together onto your back. Taking one more deep breath. If you had lifted your back knee, release it down to the ground, and then grab something to hold on to place underneath your left hand. And if you have really tight quads, so really tight fronts of the legs, this might be where we want to grab a strap or a blanket, a strap or a rope or a leash or a tie, something like that to make our arms a little bit longer. But we will come from this shape And you don't necessarily have to press your hips forward here. I think it feels more comfortable in my body, but you can bring it back just a little bit so that we're a little bit more at like a 90-degree bend. And then maybe reach your right arm back and clasp the outer edge of your left foot. Again, to deepen the sensation, you can press your hips forward. And then think here that you're gently tugging your foot backwards to help open up the shoulder a little bit as you're gently pressing your hips forward. Again, if you maybe want to use a strap or a scarf or something like that, we can just loop it around the back leg to make our arms a little bit longer, and then come forward here. I like to bring the strap or whatever I'm using over my shoulder so that it's kind of like I'm reaching back, if that makes sense. Take in one more deep breath. And as you exhale, gently release your left foot down towards the ground. Ooh. I'll come back to facing you. And then we'll step our right knee back to meet our left. Curl all 10 toes under, lift our hips up and back to downward facing dog. Maybe we're pedaling out the heels, maybe rainbowing the hips from side to side. Noticing how one side feels compared to the other. Not in terms of good or bad, but if we've just created space, allowed some things to really open, or maybe allowed energy to move. On your next inhale, glance between your hands. Exhale, maybe salsa step, or just normally walk your toes up to meet your fingertips. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long. Kiss your shoulder blades together. Exhale, fold forward. Bend your knees. Inhale, rise to standing. Swiping your fingertips up with you. Exhale, clear your hands through heart. Inhale, reach up, grow tall. Exhale, cactus one time, squeeze and drag down, maybe flipping your grip again. Inhale, reach. Exhale, clear your hands through heart. And again, find what you were holding on to. Maybe blocks, maybe your chair or sofa or the countertop or a wall. Then again, find yourself standing in front of it. Inhale, swipe your fingertips up. Exhale, hinge over your hips, fold forward. Inhale, lift your body halfway. Kiss your shoulder blades together. Exhale, fold forward. Place your hands on whatever you're holding on to, this time centering your right hand in the middle, roughly again underneath my nose. Add a slight bend into my right knee so I'm a little sassy in my hips. Inhale, reach my left arm up to the sky. Maybe I gaze up at my fingertips, add a couple of wrist circles going one way or the other, whatever feels good. Or maybe bind my left hand behind my back, so bringing the back of my left hand to my right outer hip and then rolling my shoulder onto my back. On your next inhale, reach your left arm up to the sky if you would bound it, and start to shift your weight into your left foot, getting light in the right heel. Then slide maybe your right toes out long back behind you, whoop, until your right knee comes down onto the ground or onto your blanket. There we go. Inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, cactus. Again, instead of flaring out and pressing your hips forward, think about trying to gently knit them towards your hips so that we're not arching, but we're gently just kind of hugging our ribs towards our hips. Inhale, reach your fingertips up. Exhale, drop your left hand, twist towards the left into your leg. Again, if you're pregnant or have any issues, open up that twist to the other side. With each inhale, lengthen through your spine. Each exhale, twist a little bit deeper, using the core to initiate that movement. Pull your hands apart from each other. Take in one more deep breath. Inhale, reach your fingertips up to the sky. Exhale, frame your front foot. And then walk it out, bringing your left hand next to your left foot. Walk your left foot out, maybe 2 to 3 footprints or towards the edge of your yoga mat, and turn your left toes out about 45 degrees. Again, we can stay here, maybe walk the back knee back a little bit. Maybe it feels really nice to kind of move and shift from side to side. Or maybe lift up the back knee and shift forwards and backwards. Whatever shape feels good for you. You don't have to look like the shape that you did on the other side. That's totally fine. Maybe dropping the elbows down, but again, trying to swim the heart through. Taking one more deep breath. On your next exhale, start to press weight back into your hands if you had dropped your elbows. Release your back knee down to the earth. And then I always like to bring something underneath my right hand to make this a little bit more sustainable in my body. Maybe you press your hips forward, or maybe you bring your right hand underneath your right shoulder a little bit more, whichever feels better. And then gently reach your left hand back to clasp the outer edge of your right foot. So again, I'll turn sideways so it's a little bit easier to see. And maybe you use your strap or a scarf or a leash or a rope, something like that. But then gently kick back into your hand or into the strap or whatever you might be using to gently kind of work the shoulder. Maybe you lean forwards a little bit on your inhales and kind of kick back a little bit on your exhales. And if you don't like that, that's totally fine. Taking one more deep breath. As you exhale, gently release your right foot down towards the earth. Reframe your left foot. I'll face you all again. And then we'll step back to downward facing dog. Maybe pedaling out the heels, maybe rainbowing your hips from side to side. On your next inhale, glance between your hands. Exhale, walk your toes up towards the top of the mat. I lied, just kidding. Walk your hands back towards your toes this time. A little different. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long. Exhale, fold forwards. This time, heel toe your feet out to the long edges of your mat. And if you're not practicing on one, just wider than hips distance. So here is my inner hips distance, and this is a little bit wider than my outer hips distance. Could be about shoulder width. Maybe it might feel nice to turn your toes in a little bit, as this helps broaden the base of the pelvis. And that might feel really nice. Or maybe keep all 10 toes pointing straight. It might feel nice to maybe clasp opposite elbows. Let your head hang heavy. Maybe to add some traction along your spine, it might feel nice to clasp your hands behind the nape of your neck and gently let gravity pull down on your spine. Or maybe it might feel nice, as we've been working a little bit into the shoulders, we can make a fist behind our back and let the fist drop down towards the ground. Or maybe just like we did earlier, clasping opposite wrists, elbows, or forearms. Taking one more deep breath. On your next exhale, gently release your fingertips down towards the ground. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long. Exhale, fold forward. Super deep bend. Inhale, rise to standing, reaching both fingertips up towards the sky. Then clasp your left wrist in your right hand. If you want, you can shorten the distance in between your feet, totally fine. Inhale, lengthen up through your spine. Exhale, start to tilt over towards the right side. You can gently tug on your wrist to help deepen the sensation in your left side body, but first, see that you're not necessarily reaching forwards or reaching backwards with your shoulder, but your shoulders are in line with your body. So it's kind of like you're stuck in between two panes of glass and you're reaching. So again, maybe tilting the heart up towards the sky a little bit if that glass kind of reference didn't really land. Taking one more deep breath. And as you exhale, start to move back through center. Inhale, reach. Find length, clasp your right wrist. Exhale, lean over towards the left side. Again, so your shoulders are kind of stacked on top of each other, reaching your heart a little bit more up towards the sky. Really breathing into the right side body. Taking one more deep breath. And as you exhale, start to move back through center. Inhale, reach your fingertips up towards the sky. Exhale, hinge over your hips, fold forwards. Inhale, lift your body halfway, spine and gaze long. Exhale, fold forward. And then start to walk your fingertips down towards the ground, forwards, and then release your knees down towards the ground. Beautiful. We'll come to laying on our belly. Whoop. And if you would prefer not to lay on your belly, that's totally fine. We're coming into this kind of front of the shoulder stretch. So first, if you don't want to lay on your belly, that's totally great. Maybe find a door frame where you can bring one arm, like this is the side of the door, into the inside, and then kind of gently roll open to start to stretch the front of the chest here. Or even you can have your arm extended, kind of like a T. The 90-degree bend really increases the sensation. So again, be careful of your body, be mindful of how you would like to move. And if you're okay with laying on your belly, we'll start off there and then bring our arms out into a capital T shape, like so. Palms face the earth. And then take a quick glance and make sure that your arms are coming straight out of your shoulders. They're not too far up towards the sky, kind of like Superman, and they're not necessarily too far down, kind of like an airplane. So coming straight out of your shoulder socket. Next, bring your left hand underneath your left shoulder and then slowly start to roll onto your right side body. And you may, again, not look like me, and that's totally fine. With the glasses, it's a little funky. And if you're here and you're like, oh, that's a lot of sensation, oh my goodness. To decrease the sensation, move your right hand, that straight arm, closer towards your hip. And that's totally fine. And maybe play around with trying to find a good angle for you. If you're here and you're already rolled over onto your right hip, maybe lift your left leg and then place the sole of your left foot behind you to increase the sensation. And you can place it on top of a blanket or a pillow or a block or a book, really anything. And if you're like, girl, this still is not anything, maybe make a 90-degree bend in your elbow so that it's kind of like a cactus arm. Again, this is really intense, so be super mindful and aware of how you gently roll into that shape. It might feel nice to bind your left hand behind your back, so bring the back of your left hand to your right outer hip and rolling your shoulder onto your back. Taking one more deep breath. And as you exhale, if you had lifted your left hand, release it underneath your shoulder and gently roll back towards center. Maybe, if you like that kind of wiggle, stack your hands and then wiggle your hips from side to side. When you're ready for the other side, we'll start to set up. So reaching both arms out like a T, again, making sure that your arms are coming straight out of your shoulder socket, especially not too high up, a little bit lower, especially if you know that maybe one side has a past injury or some issues. Maybe take it a little bit lower so that we're not increasing the sensation too much. Bring your right hand underneath your right shoulder and start to roll onto your left hip. Again, to increase the sensation, maybe lift your right leg up towards the sky and then place it behind you, maybe onto something. Maybe bind your right hand behind your back if that feels good. That's not necessary though, that works more into the front of the chest versus into the left shoulder. Or again, if you're like, no, I still really don't feel anything, maybe make your elbow a 90-degree bend. Again, noticing that my elbow is coming straight out of my shoulder, that I'm not too far up or too far down. And one side does not have to look like the other side. Start to take in one deep, deep breath. And as you exhale, if you had lifted your right hand, release it underneath your shoulder. Gently roll back towards center. Maybe switch which hand is on top as you do our little wiggle. Maybe flip which ear is resting on your palms, or you get the backs of your hands. When you're ready, we'll roll onto our back and then slowly come up towards a seated position. And if you liked that rocking and rolling, that might feel nice. But again, you do not have to do that. There we go. Sweet. So this last one, for this last little shape, I like to really use, if you have blocks or books, maybe place a blanket on top of them to make it a little bit more cushy for your body. But I'll first show the blocks version. So if you have 2 blocks or 2 books, or you would really like a very deep version of this kind of upper back bend, working a lot into the shoulders here, this might be an option for you, but I will talk more about different options in a moment. So if I really like this kind of upside down T, so if one of your blocks is sideways and then the other one is more vertical, and I would sit in front of this like so. And this horizontal block, I'm looking for it to hit pretty much right right underneath my shoulder blades, kind of like where that little like chicken wing pops out. And if you wear a bra, that's usually where your bra strap is right underneath the shoulder blades. And you can kind of play around with how high you want the blocks. I don't like the highest setting of blocks because that's, I don't think, very helpful in this shape. So either this more medium setting, so the kind of like halfway in between, or even the lowest is really great as well. And this block here is to support our head. So if you feel like maybe you're not super mobile, but you really like this shape and you've practiced it before, maybe you would like a little bit more support for your head, and that's totally fine. But I'll show you what it'll be like to kind of lay onto it. So I like to set it up first with about maybe 8 inches in between my 2 blocks, in between this end and this end of the block. And then I'll slowly start to lay back down onto it, finding that place where it hits pretty much right at my bra strap, and then I can rest my head. And I can play around with it, finding a place that feels good. And if I feel like I'm too high or too low, I can adjust that as well. From here, it might feel nice to bring the bottoms of the feet to touch and let the knees open up as well as open up the arms. However, that's pretty intense, and if you're like, girl, I don't even have blocks, that's totally fine. You can grab a blanket or a towel, and especially if you're looking for this more kind of like open across the chest. You can roll it into like a little burrito or into a little like sushi roll, and you can have it horizontal so that you can lay this part where it'll hit at your shoulder, so right underneath the shoulder blades. And if you'd like a little bit of a pad or something like that, maybe use a pillow or an extra blanket to have underneath your head, so maybe something like so. And then again, sit in front of it, find a nice happy place. Oh, that's a little too high, so I'm gonna scoot forwards. Find a good place to start to lay, and maybe open up the knees like before, or maybe keep the soles of the feet down on the ground, totally fine. And if you don't have a blanket or a towel, or if that doesn't feel good in your body, we can also just find reclined Baddha Konasana, which is that shape we're moving into. So we can just lay on the ground, bring the soles of our feet to touch, and let our knees open, kind of like a book. This is pretty intense, kind of letting gravity do the work for us. So we can place maybe pillows, blankets, really anything underneath the knees to help lift them and support them, especially if you feel a pressure on the outer part of the knees. And here, to really work into the chest, we'll come into cactus arms so that our shoulder blades are gently resting down on the ground, but I'm really opening up this here. each breath in, really fill your low belly. And with each breath out, gently release and soften into whatever might be supporting you. Gently start to take in 3 deep, deep breaths, each one bigger and brighter than the last. And when you're ready, you can take Shavasana in this shape if that's calling your name. But if you're ready to move into our final pose, we can use the hands to close the knees, kind of like closing a book. And if there are any other shapes, movements, postures, poses, really anything that your body is calling for, now is a really great time to take it, getting out all the last little wiggles. And once you're ready for Shavasana, you can start to reach your legs out long, reaching them on the ground. Kind of gently roll your shoulder blades underneath you, gently tucking them away. And if you have a blanket or a towel or anything like that, maybe placing it on your hips and torso might feel really nice. Maybe placing a pillow underneath your head, or maybe placing a pillow underneath your knees for any low back tension. Face your palms up towards the sky to receive uplifting energy, and face your palms down towards the earth to receive grounding energy. Shavasana. Start to take in 3 deep, deep breaths. Maybe start to add a small wiggle into your fingertips and toes. Maybe making those movements a little bit bigger. maybe starting to rock your head from side to side. Or maybe reaching your arms up overhead and stretching like it's the first thing in the morning. When you're ready, roll to one side that's calling your name, using your bottom arm as like a little pillow and your top arm as a little blanket. And really just take a moment to really breathe into you, into your body and your muscles and tissues and tendons and everything that makes us up. And breathe into your soul and your essence and the things that make you laugh and cry and really experience the world. And breathe into yourself, the whole entire part of you. Really allowing this feeling, this kind of floating feeling, to really uplift you. And imagine that you could send that feeling to your friends, your family, your communities, the whole world. Sending love and light. When you're ready, you can slowly push up towards a seated position, trying to keep your eyes closed if possible. When you're there, sitting up nice and tall and proud, gently rolling your shoulders onto your back, lifting the crown of your head up towards the sky. And let go of any air that might be in your belly. Just let it out really strong out your mouth. Take a deep breath in. Exhale super big. Deeper breath in. Even bigger exhale. Really show some emotion. Deepest breath all day. Really resonate within you. Exhale, really let it go. Add some emotion, add some movement. And we'll seal our practice with an Om. An Om is kind of spelled like A-U-M. And we're making the sounds of those letters with our body and our voice. Taking it, reach the thumb, reach your hands into a prayer shape in front of your heart, reaching your chest a little bit higher to meet your thumbs. Take a deep breath in. The light in me honors, recognizes, and truly appreciates the light within you. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing, friends. Hopefully everything feels a little bit more open and a little bit more loose, ready to move. I'm sorry for teaching indoors. It was a little cloudy and not necessarily cloudy, definitely cloudy, but there's a lot of noise outside of where I live, so I wanted to try and make this as calm and peaceful for you all as possible. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, any feedback, any requests, or anything like that you would like for the future, please leave them down in the comments, or maybe message me here on Facebook or through any of my other social media. That's totally fine. I'd love to talk with you all, and really anything that you might be looking for. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for practicing. This really fills my soul and fills my cup, as I really love being able to still be a part of the community, even though we can't necessarily interact face to face. But thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, the long weekend, and hopefully I'll see you all soon. Namaste. Have a good rest of your Saturday.